How's it going out there, everybody? This is Marq Burnett, Alabama beat writer for SEC Country, coming to you live here on a Monday night. Obviously, follow me on Twitter at Marq_BURNETT. That's it. That's at MARQBURNETT. Read all my work at SECCountry.com. Ton of news up there on the site today, so go check that out, SECCountry.com/Alabama. To get you sort of caught up on all the latest news out of Tuscaloosa, everything Nick Saban said, some of what the players said, and just all the news and notes and everything like that. So you guys definitely should go check that out if you haven't. Also, download our SEC Country app as well. Somebody's jumping in here with the heat already. Aaron Watson says, "Is Humphrey still starting?" Yes, he's still starting. Despite how he looked in the last game, he's still Alabama's best cornerback. So I think Marlon Humphrey's going to be fine going forward. He gave us some big plays, but he's still one of the top cornerbacks in the nation. So I don't get too down on him just yet. But to start off, I wanted to talk to you guys about the injury news and notes out of that's sort of lingering from the last game. Obviously, the big injuries were Reuben Foster and Alphonse Taylor. Both of those guys suffered concussions in the win over Arkansas. Nick Saban said those guys will probably need another day or two of rest. They were both at practice today, but neither one of them participated. They were just standing around in black non-contact jerseys. So if I had to guess, I would say both are probably going to play in the game on Saturday. But it's just going to be one of those situations that we have to monitor going forward. Foster, he was actually trying to avoid a hit, jumping over the pile, and actually got tripped up while in the air and just sort of landed on his head awkwardly, and he was taken out of the game. With Alphonse Taylor, I'm not exactly sure how he got hurt. But, like I said, I think both of those guys will be fine. The fact that they were outside and at least standing around at practice is a good sign for their availability on Saturday. Alabama's going to need all hands on deck. And then the other injury was Joshua Jacobs, the true freshman running back. He pinched a nerve in his elbow on Saturday, but he's fine. He was back at practice today. Nick Saban said he was actually cleared to go back into the game, but the team decided to hold him out as a precautionary reason. But I saw him out there at practice. He's wearing a heavy padding on his right arm and his elbow to sort of protect that, but he's able to grip the football, which is a good thing. So Alabama should have all of his running backs ready for the game against Tennessee. So let me get some of these questions. I see Freddie Scott Parlier says, "Why isn't Emmons playing it more?" Because at this point of their careers, Damian Harris is better. He's the starter. Joshua Jacobs is better. He's the number 2 guy. And then they use Bo Scarborough sort of as the sort of the big bruising back. So that's 3 running backs ahead of him. I think Emmons still has a chance to have a good career, and I think he'll play more as the season goes on, as Alabama looks to sort of spread out those carries a little bit more. But I think he's a good player, but at the same time, there's only so many spots. I mean, if you got Damian Harris as a starter, who's obviously played well, he's got 3 games over 100 yards this year. Joshua Jacobs has played well, so if he's healthy, he's the number 2 guy. Bo Scarborough looked pretty good against Arkansas when he was in there, so I think it's just a situation where he just has guys ahead of him, and he's got to do a better job in practice to show the coaches that he deserves more touches. So, like I said, I think he'll be fine going forward. He's a really good player. Just a matter of having guys ahead of him right now. Let's see what else we got here. Injuries. Yeah, I just talked about the injuries. Reuben Foster and Alphonse Taylor are both limited today in black jerseys. Michael Arnold says, seriously, what's going on with this secondary? I mean, that's tough. I think it's a situation where guys were sort of in position to make the plays, but they just were misplaying the ball, or there was some mental errors, making mistakes on assignments and not being where they needed to be. It wasn't like Arkansas was doing anything special. They're just kind of running play action and running skinny posts and different things like that. Alabama just couldn't stop them. But I think that it's a good sign, the fact that if you're Alabama, you like to get the win and still have some things to improve on. I think that's going to keep the players hungry heading into this week and have them sort of locked in and ready to go against Tennessee. I think they'll be hungry, especially the secondary. I mean, they got exposed last week, and I think they're going to want to come out and show that they're not as bad as they played against Arkansas. Giving up 400 yards, they obviously had 3 interceptions, but the last thing you want to do is give up 400 yards to a team like Arkansas that's not even really that good at passing the ball. I think they're a pretty heavy run team, but Alabama's obviously stopped the run. And then when Arkansas got behind, they just sort of just said, screw it, we're just going to throw the ball 61 times. So I think Alabama will be fine in the secondary going forward. Just going to be a matter of getting those guys on the same page and making sure that they're not busting coverages and things like that. Heath Burns says, is Jacobs okay? Yes, Joshua Jacobs is going to be okay. I think he'll play on Saturday. Aaron Watson says Ronnie needs to be on the bench. I assume you're talking about Ronnie Harrison. I think the problem with Harrison, he's not very good from what I've seen in sort of man-to-man coverage. I think he sort of gets exposed there at times. He's a really good safety. He's a big hitter, really good to run. But I think when you sort of isolate him, if I was a team, if I'm looking to attack Alabama, I definitely want to isolate him on my tight end or my running back or something like that, because he has shown that he'll give up a big play or two. I think in a perfect world, Alabama would have Tony Brown sort of playing that money spot, which would leave Harrison at safety, so that Tony Brown's better in coverage. But with Tony Brown missing the first 4 games, it's been sort of hard for them to work him back into the rotation. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, and then with the bye week coming up, maybe Alabama will be able to get Tony Brown work back in there so that he can play some more. Let's see what else we got here. Josh Schuster says, did Nick Saban know about the UT flag on his statue? I'm not sure. That would have been a good question to ask him today. Maybe somebody will bring that up on Wednesday next time we talk to him. Let's see. Tony Brown. Colin Aiken says Tony Brown needs to be starting for Harrison. Like I said, I still think Harrison's a good player. I do think Brown could do some things in coverage that Harrison can't. So like I said, I think if Alabama can find a way to get Tony Brown up to speed, I definitely think he can help this secondary out, because he's very physical, he's very fast, very talented, a guy who can really sort of do some things in coverage as well. King at Leon Nation said, what changes do you think the secondary need to make to perform better? I think it's just a matter of not blowing assignments. I think a lot of times on some of the big plays they've given up this year, even if you go back to the Ole Miss game, they were just sort of missed assignments, guys not communicating, and that's troubling to a degree, because Alabama, outside of maybe Anthony Averett, the rest of these guys are experienced, so you need to figure those things out going forward. Kevin Burnham says, how do you think Alabama would do against Tennessee? I think Alabama's going to get the win. Tennessee is really banged up right now. They've lost a lot of key guys, and I'm interested to see how Tennessee comes out after losing that game last week to Texas A&M the way they did it. Tennessee was sort of riding this wave of momentum, and it felt like they were going to come back and win another game, but they had the late turnover there in overtime to end that game. So I think Tennessee's a really good team, but the last thing you want to have going up against Alabama is to be banged up and not have depth, and also have your offensive line struggling. I mean, Alabama's got so many pass rushers. I really think they're going to be able to get after Joshua Dobbs on Saturday. Gabriel Jeter says, hey, what's up with Trayvon Diggs? He tweaked his knee in practice last week, so he's been kind of limited, but I think he'll be fine going forward. Let's see what else we got. Nathan Browning says, do you think the slow start on offense will catch up with us sooner or later? They actually started pretty fast on offense this week. I mean, if you think about it, on their first drive, they get all the way down to the 1, but then they fumble after Joshua Jacobs took a big shot on his elbow and he lost the ball. But then they came out and scored on their next 2 drives. So I think they actually had a pretty decent start this game. So I think if they can build on that, obviously cut out the turnover early on, and then I think they'll be fine in terms of starts. Let's see. Barry Real says, why do you think Howard is not getting more passes? I know a lot of people want O.J. Howard to catch the ball. It's just really tough to sort of spread the ball around that much. They're obviously trying to feature Calvin Ridley and Ardarius Stewart. I think those are obviously their 2 go-to guys. And they're using O.J. Howard sort of more as a decoy and using him more to block. So I think, he's obviously a good player and everybody wants him to catch the ball more. But, for whatever reason, him and Hurst just haven't been able to connect very much so far this season. Let's see here. James Winfrey says, who's the team that Bama should be concerned about? I think Texas A&M next week is going to be a really big game. Texas A&M is going to have a bye week this week, so they should be rested up and ready to come into Tuscaloosa for that game. I think Alabama will be favored in that game, but it's going to be a tough one. And Texas A&M has a really good passing offense, and we saw Alabama give us some plays against Arkansas. So if they don't get the secondary cleaned up, Texas A&M could make some plays on them. Let's see. Dusty Hill says you're black, and I said he misspelled your, so get off my feed. Let's see. Kevin Burnham says, do you think you will play Georgia this weekend? Or this season? I don't think so. I don't think Georgia's got a shot to win the. I don't think they got a shot to win the East this year. I think Tennessee's probably going to win the East. Let's see. Ricky Cochran says they had a secondary players only meeting. Yeah, that was a good sign. I think they, they wanted to get those things figured out. It's always good when you see the players sort of taking responsibility and not having to worry about the coaching staff to sort of say things. Tommy Davidson says, where is Nigel Knott? He's injured. He actually hurt his knee before the season, so he wasn't able to really do anything in camp, and so he's probably going to redshirt this year because he's still sort of getting over that injury. Michael Arnold says, was this the best game for the O-line this season? Yeah, I would say so. I thought they really dominated up front. Alabama ran the ball whenever they wanted to, which is a good sign going forward. I think the offensive line is coming along really well. If they can keep Alphonse Taylor healthy and not have to worry about rotating guys, I think they'll be fine. John Zert says, where are Robert Foster and Cam Sims? Robert Foster, is probably the fourth receiver on the depth chart right now behind Calvin Ridley, Ardarius Stewart, and Garrett Dieter. And then Cam Sims will be the fifth. Cam Sims got a lot of playing time in the last two games with Ardarius Stewart out, but with Stewart back, he sort of goes back into that situational role. Donnie P says, do you think they will use Howard and Garrett Dieter more in the passing game since they have two weapons? Dieter got a lot of passes early on in the season, but as I said, I think the offense is trying to feature Stewart and Ridley. And if you watch Lane Kiffin over the years, he usually finds one or two guys and sort of keys in on them. Last year was obviously Derrick Henry and Calvin Ridley. The year before that, it was mostly Amari Cooper. So that's sort of Kiffin's staple, to find a couple guys and just try to get them the ball as much as they can. Mal Morton says, is Reuben Foster going to get to play this weekend? I believe he will be able to play. It's just going to be a matter of sort of monitoring him the rest of the week. James Winfrey says, what team will be a true threat to Bama? As I said before, I think Texas A&M is probably the toughest team left on their regular season schedule. I'm not sure who was going to make the playoff, obviously, but I think Texas A&M will probably be the last tough test for them if they can get past Tennessee. Dusty Hill says, will Rashaan Evans play more? I think we'll see him play a lot this game because Rashaan has a type of skill set where they can use him as a spy, sort of have him rushing from the middle of the defense or on the edge. So he's a guy who's really versatile. I think Evans is going to play a big role in this game as they sort of try to keep Dobbs in the pocket. He's a guy that they used in that spy role when they played Clemson in the national championship game. So I think he could be a guy who sees the same type of role in this game. All right, let's see. Derek Brothers says, I think there needs to be more deep passes to Ridley. Why isn't it happening? They've tried a few times, but the chemistry just hasn't been there so far this season with the deep pass to Ridley. I think they're trying to get him the ball in other ways, whether it's quick screens, just sort of doing whatever they can, even lining him up in the backfield a little bit. So I think Ridley's obviously a big part of this offense, and he's going to continue to have a big season. He could have a breakout game this weekend. It wouldn't shock me at all if the first play went to Ridley. Mike Terry said, is Ben Davis going to redshirt? I would think so. I mean, he's been working with scout team mostly this year, so he's just he's behind a few other guys on the depth chart. If you look at the inside linebacker, you got at least Reuben Foster, Sean Deion Hamilton, Rashaan Evans, Keith Holcomb, and also the other five-star freshman Mac Wilson all in front of him. So it wouldn't shock me if he redshirted. Cameron West says, what team do you think will play in the SEC championship? I think Alabama's going to play Tennessee in the championship game. I think Tennessee's probably going to wind up, even though they're probably going to lose these two games back-to-back, they'll still probably be the team that makes it out of the East. The East is not very good this year. Let's see. Let's see if we got a few more here. Cameron West says, what will be the key for Alabama to beat Tennessee? If they continue to run the ball like they did last week against Arkansas, I think they'll be fine. Tennessee showing that they'll give up a lot of big plays. And Tennessee also showed that they'll turn the ball over, which, Alabama's really done a great job this year of taking advantage of those turnovers, scoring, 9 non-offensive touchdowns, including 7 touchdowns on defense, which is insane. Derek Everett says, is there anything Bama needs to worry about on the Iron Bowl? I don't think so. I don't think Auburn's very good. I know a lot of people were sort of jumping back on Auburn's bandwagon these last couple of weeks, but they haven't really played anybody. I mean, they're beating up on sort of weak teams. I mean, they beat Mississippi State, who's probably the worst team in the West. And then before that, I'm pretty sure they beat, like, La Monroe or somebody like that. I mean, so they haven't really beaten anybody. How is Alabama's defense, in your opinion? From Kevin Burnham. I mean, they got the best run defense in the country statistically, but I think the pass defense can get better, obviously, as we saw against Arkansas. And I think that'll be the big focus this week as they head into Tennessee week. So you probably take a few more here. Cedric Ferrier says, do you think that Kiffin only focusing on 2 receivers will hurt over time with recruiting as well as limit Hurts' development as a passer? I don't think so. I mean, they're still bringing in highly rated receivers. I mean, if you go look at 247's recruiting rankings, they still got a lot of talented receivers. I think guys who think they're that good, they want to come here because they think if they play well, then they'll get those targets. So I don't think it'll hurt recruiting at all. Jerry Ballard says, does Tennessee have any receivers that can hurt our DBs? Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee has a lot of talented receivers, and Josh Dobbs has a big arm. He can really throw the ball down the field. Dobbs' problem's been is that he turned it over a little bit, especially in the last game. He fumbled some, he threw some interceptions. So, if Alabama's DBs can get in positions, they may have an opportunity to make some interceptions. So, I think they're just going to have to play well and not let the receivers sort of get behind them or anything like that and give up some big plays. Last one for tonight, Ricky Rodriguez says, you think the Vols have a chance against the Tide? I don't. I think Alabama's going to win this game going away, probably by 10 or 14 points. I just think they're a better team, and also it doesn't help that Tennessee's really banged up. So even though it's on the road, I still think Alabama should be able to go in there and get the win in Neyland Stadium on Saturday. So, that's all I got. Obviously, follow me on Twitter. Check in there at Marq_BURNETT. That's at MARQ_BURNETT. Read all my work at SECCountry.com. And I'll do another one of these on Wednesday night around the same time. So I'll see you guys then. Have a good night.